On a humid night in New Orleans, a corrupt cop plants evidence on a black woman, confident that she'll have no way out. But what he doesn't know? She's an FBI agent. By the time he realizes his mistake, it's too late. His career is about to crumble. But how will she fight back against a system designed to protect the corrupt? And will justice truly be served? Stay tuned to find out. And don't forget to subscribe and drop a comment telling us where you're watching from. The humid night air of New Orleans clung to Maya Johnson's skin as she drove through the dimly lit streets. A seasoned FBI agent, Maya had spent the last few weeks investigating corruption in the city's police force. She was exhausted, but the work was far from over. As she turned onto a quieter road, the flash of red and blue lights filled her rearview mirror. A patrol car was signaling her to pull over. Her brow furrowed. She hadn't been speeding or violating any traffic laws. Still, Maya complied, steering her car to the curb. She took a deep breath, watching as a tall, stocky officer approached her window. His name tag read Calloway. His eyes were cold, calculating. "License and registration," he demanded, his tone sharp. Maya rolled down her window and handed him the documents. "Good evening, officer. May I ask why I'm being stopped?" Calloway smirked. "Routine check. You were swerving a little back there." Maya's eyes narrowed. She knew that was a lie. She had been driving carefully. "That's strange," she said evenly. "I don't recall swerving." Calloway ignored her response, briefly scanning her documents before flicking his gaze around her car. "Step out of the vehicle," he ordered. Maya remained still. "Is there a reason for that, officer?" "Standard procedure," Calloway replied, his smirk widening. Maya knew what was happening. As an FBI agent, she had seen this play out before. An abuse of power, a trap disguised as protocol. Suppressing a sigh, she pushed open the door and stepped out. As she stood by the curb, Calloway leaned into her car, pretending to inspect the interior. That's when she saw it, a subtle flick of his wrist, a small plastic bag sliding under the driver's seat. Her stomach clenched. He just planted evidence. "Look at that," Calloway said, straightening up with an exaggerated expression of surprise. He held up the small bag filled with white powder. Well, looks like we've got a problem." Maya's jaw tightened. "That's not mine," she said firmly. Calloway chuckled. "That's what they all say." Maya forced herself to stay calm, though her heart pounded. She had just been framed, but Calloway had no idea who he was messing with. Tonight, he thought he had the upper hand. He was dead wrong. The cold metal of the handcuffs bit into Maya's wrists as Officer Calloway shoved her into the back of the patrol car. The smug grin on his face only deepened her growing anger. She had been in tight situations before, but never like this, never as the target of a corrupt cop's scheme. Sitting in the back seat, she glanced at the rearview mirror and caught the uneasy expression of Officer Derek Mills, Calloway's partner. He looked young, maybe mid-20s, and his jaw was clenched, as if he was silently debating whether to speak. As the car pulled away, Maya broke the silence. "You know this is wrong?" Mills stiffened but didn't respond. Calloway, on the other hand, let out a chuckle. "What's wrong, ma'am? Don't like getting a taste of your own medicine?" Maya tilted her head. "I uphold the law. You twist it for your own gain." Calloway glanced at her through the mirror, his smirk widening. "You're real confident for someone who's about to have her career and reputation destroyed." Maya didn't waver. "You didn't even run my ID before arresting me, did you?" That got his attention. His smirk faltered for a brief second before he masked it with arrogance. "Doesn't matter who you are," he said. "You had drugs in your car." That's all anyone will see. Mills shifted uncomfortably in his seat. He finally spoke, his voice cautious. Calloway, maybe we should double-check her credentials. Something feels off. Calloway shot him a glare. You're not paid to think, Mills. Stick to the script. Maya caught that. Stick to the script. This wasn't just a bad traffic stop. This was planned. By the time they arrived at the precinct, she had already mapped out her next steps. She wasn't going down for this, and she sure as hell wasn't letting Calloway walk away unscathed. The moment they pulled her out of the car and walked her through the station, other officers turned to watch. Some wore neutral expressions, others sneered, already convinced of her guilt. That was how corruption worked. Perception was enough to ruin someone before they even had a chance to defend themselves. At the processing desk, a desk sergeant raised an eyebrow at Calloway. Another one? He asked. Yep, Calloway said. Caught her with a nice little baggie of coke under her seat. The sergeant frowned, looking at Maya. You don't look like the usual suspects? Maya inhaled slowly. That's because I'm not. The sergeant shrugged. Not my problem. He motioned to Calloway. Book her. As they took her fingerprints, Maya met Mills's eyes one last time. There was hesitation there, doubt. She would use that. This wasn't over, not by a long shot. Maya sat in the cold, dimly lit holding cell, her wrists aching from the too tight cuffs. She had been in interrogation rooms before, but never on this side of the table. The clock on the wall ticked steadily, each second fueling her determination. Calloway thought he had won. He was about to find out how wrong he was. The heavy steel door creaked open. Calloway strolled in, arrogance dripping from every step. He leaned against the metal table, arms crossed. Enjoying your stay, he sneered. Maya met his gaze calmly. Cut the act, Calloway. We both know this is a setup. Calloway chuckled, shaking his head. You really don't get it, do you? It doesn't matter what you know. It matters what people believe. And right now, you're a drug trafficker, a disgrace. By tomorrow, the news will be all over town. Maya leaned forward, her expression unreadable. Tell me something, Officer Calloway. Did you even bother to check my credentials before pulling this stunt? Calloway's smirk faltered for just a second. He recovered quickly. Doesn't matter who you are. You had drugs in your car. That's all that counts. Maya's lips curled into a slow smile. I was hoping you'd say that. With deliberate control, she lifted her cuffed hands and reached into her jacket pocket, where they had foolishly left her wallet. She flipped it open, revealing her FBI badge. The room went silent. Calloway's eyes widened, his confidence cracking. Maya let the weight of the revelation settle in before speaking. That's right. You didn't just frame any random woman tonight. You framed a federal agent. The door behind them opened abruptly. Officer Mills stood frozen in the doorway, his face pale. He had overheard everything. Calloway swallowed hard. You're bluffing. Maya tilted her head. Then go ahead. Make that call. Let's see how fast your career ends. For the first time that night, Calloway looked afraid. Calloway stood frozen, staring at the FBI badge in Maya's hands, as if it were a loaded gun. The arrogance he had carried all night drained from his face, replaced by something he wasn't used to feeling, fear. You're lying, he muttered, but his voice lacked the confidence it held before. Maya smirked. Am I? She tilted her head. Go ahead, Calloway. Make a phone call. See what happens when you try to push this through. The silence stretched between them, thick and suffocating. Behind them, Officer Derek Mills lingered at the door, his face pale. He had heard everything, the illegal stop, the planted drugs, and now The realization that they had just framed an FBI agent. Mills cleared his throat. Calloway, if she really is FBI, we need to stop this. Calloway snapped his head toward Mills, his expression shifting from fear to rage. Shut the hell up, rookie, he growled. You think this is a game? You think she's some kind of hero? He gestured toward Maya. This woman is gonna burn, badge or not. Maya leaned back in her chair, keeping her composure. You sure about that? Calloway hesitated for a split second, then yanked his radio off his belt. Dispatch, I need... Maya cut him off. You really want to do that? Because by now, my people are already making calls. Internal affairs will be swarming this place before sunrise. Calloway faltered. His fingers tightened around the radio, but he didn't press the button. He was calculating, weighing his options. Then the door swung open again, and another officer walked in. Sergeant Paul Reynolds, one of the higher-ranking officers in the precinct. His sharp eyes scanned the rooms, landing on Maya first, then Calloway. What the hell is going on here? Reynolds demanded. Calloway turned quickly. We caught her with drugs, Sarge. Just processing the arrest. Maya didn't miss the slight edge in Reynolds' expression. His gaze flicked to Mills, who looked like he wanted to be anywhere but here. Reynolds exhaled sharply. Mills, outside, now. Mills hesitated, glancing at Maya before nodding and stepping out. Once the door shut behind him, Reynolds crossed his arms. Agent Johnson. His tone was calm but firm. You want to explain to me why you're in my precinct? Maya held his gaze. Because Calloway decided to frame me, Calloway scoffed. She's making that up. Shut up, Reynolds snapped at him. Then turning back to Maya, he asked, You have proof? Maya smiled. Number. But I have a badge, and if you don't handle this right now, I guarantee the FBI will. The room turned deadly silent. Reynolds sighed, pinching the bridge of his nose. Then, without looking at Calloway, he muttered, Get out of my sight. Calloway stiffened. Sarge, I said get out, Reynolds repeated. Maya watched as Calloway clenched his jaw, his nostrils flaring, but he had no choice. He stormed out, slamming the door behind him. Once they were alone, Reynolds lowered his voice. You and I both know Calloway isn't working alone. Maya nodded. And I'm going to find out who's pulling the strings. Reynolds exhaled. You'd better move fast. She was already ahead of him. Maya sat in the empty interrogation room, the walls closing in, as she pieced together her next move. Calloway wasn't working alone. Sergeant Reynolds knew it, and so did she. But knowing wasn't enough. She needed proof. The door creaked open, and Officer Mills stepped inside, shutting it quickly behind him. His hands fidgeted at his belt, his nervousness evident. You need to get out of here, he muttered. Maya raised an eyebrow. So, now you're growing a conscience? Mills exhaled sharply. I never signed up for this. I became a cop to do the right thing. But Calloway? He's got people protecting him. People way above my pay grade. He hesitated, then whispered, You're not the first person he's framed. Maya leaned forward. Then, help me stop him. Mills looked toward the one-way mirror, as if checking for unseen eyes. There's a file, he admitted. A real thick one. Records, names, payoffs. It proves everything. Maya's heartbeat quickened. Where is it? Mills hesitated, then pulled a keycard from his pocket. 3rd floor, evidence locker. You've got 20 minutes, maybe less, before Calloway realizes I'm helping you. Maya stood. Then let's move. They navigated the dim hallways, keeping to the shadows. Maya's mind raced. If this file was as damning as Mills claimed, It would blow Calloway's entire operation wide open. As they reached the stairwell, Mills grabbed her arm. "If we get caught, we're both dead." Maya nodded. "Then we don't get caught." They slipped onto the third floor, the flickering overhead lights casting long shadows. At the end of the corridor stood the evidence locker, and next to it, a security guard. Maya's pulse spiked. "We need a distraction." Mills glanced at a vending machine down the hall. "Give me 2 seconds." Before she could ask, he walked toward the machine, pulled out his baton, and smashed the glass panel. The loud shatter sent the guard sprinting toward him. "Hey, what the hell are you doing?" the guard yelled. "Damn thing ate my dollar," Mills grumbled, acting annoyed. The moment the guard turned away, Maya slipped inside the evidence room. Rows of lockers stretched before her, each filled with boxes of confiscated items. She scanned the labels until she spotted Calloway's name. Heart pounding, she ripped open the drawer and found a thick folder inside. She flipped it open. Payout records, arrest reports, surveillance footage. This was it. Footsteps echoed in the hallway. Calloway's voice barking orders. They were out of time. Maya clutched the file and ran back to the door. She met Mills's wide eyes just as Calloway rounded the corner. "There she is!" Calloway roared, reaching for his gun. Maya didn't think. She just ran. Mills sprinted beside her. Alarms blared, red lights flashing, as officers swarmed the halls. Calloway was right behind them. Maya shoved through an emergency exit, bursting into the humid New Orleans night. The humid night air clung to Maya's skin as she and Mills sprinted through the dark alleyways of New Orleans. Behind them, sirens wailed, the angry shouts of officers growing fainter. Clutching the file against her chest, Maya knew they had what they needed, proof of Calloway's corruption and the people protecting him. But getting it was only half the battle. "We need to get this to internal affairs," Mills panted, glancing over his shoulder. "Calloway won't stop until we're either arrested or dead." Maya nodded. "I have a contact, Agent Marcus Steele. If we get this to him, it's over for Calloway." Mills hesitated, his jaw tight. "And if we don't make it?" Maya gave him a sharp look. "Then we fight." They arrived at a safe house, an old abandoned warehouse Maya had used before. She quickly scanned the file under the dim light. Names, payments, surveillance footage, enough to take down Calloway, and more importantly, the man protecting him, Senator James Whitaker. A noise outside made Mills tense. "They found us." Maya barely had time to react before the door exploded inward. Calloway stormed in, his gun drawn, his face twisted in fury. Behind him, 2 officers followed, weapons raised. "End of the road, Johnson," Calloway sneered. Maya didn't flinch. "You're losing your grip, Calloway. You wouldn't be here yourself if you weren't desperate." Calloway chuckled darkly. "Oh, I'm not desperate, sweetheart. I'm just tying up loose ends." He raised his gun, but Mills moved first. "Drop it, Calloway," Mills ordered, his own gun now aimed at his former partner. Calloway's eyes darkened. "You really think you're some kind of hero, Mills? You turn on me, and you think these FBI suits will protect you?" Mills didn't waver. "Maybe not, but I know I'd rather go down doing the right thing than die a coward." For the first time, Calloway hesitated, but before he could react, the sound of sirens filled the air. Maya smiled. "That's my backup." Calloway's smirk disappeared as FBI agents swarmed the building, led by Agent Marcus Steele. "Drop your weapon, Calloway," Steele commanded. Calloway's jaw clenched, his eyes darting between Mills and Maya. He knew he was trapped. With a growl of frustration, he threw his gun to the floor. Two agents tackled him, slamming him to the ground. The other officers hesitated, then slowly raised their hands in surrender. As Calloway was dragged to his feet, Maya stepped forward, locking eyes with him. "You really thought you'd win?" she asked. Calloway sneered, but there was no confidence left. "You have no idea how deep this goes," Maya smirked. "That's what I'm counting on." As Calloway was hauled away, Maya turned to Mills. "You all right?" Mills exhaled. "Yeah, but this isn't over, is it?" Maya shook her head. "Not even close." Maya stood outside the New Orleans FBI field office, watching as Calloway was shoved into the back of a black SUV. His face was a mask of fury, but the fight was gone from his eyes. He knew it was over. Agent Marcus Steele stood beside her, arms crossed. "You did good, Johnson," he said. "Calloway's going down for a long time. And with that file, we're taking this all the way up to Whitaker." Maya nodded, gripping the folder in her hands. "This isn't just about Calloway. Whitaker's been pulling the strings for years. We have the evidence. Now we make sure he doesn't slither out of this." Steele gave a small smirk. "You really think a senator is just gonna roll over?" Maya's lips curled into a knowing smile. "Number. But I don't need him to roll over. I just need him cornered." Behind them, Mills approached, his face still pale from the night's events. "So what happens now?" he asked. Maya turned to him. "Calloway faces trial. Whitaker gets exposed. And you—" She studied him. "You're going to have to decide what kind of cop you want to be." Mills let out a slow breath. "I think I already made that decision." Steele patted him on the shoulder. "You did good, kid. Not many have the guts to go against the system." Mills nodded, but his eyes carried the weight of what they had just been through. As the SUV carrying Calloway pulled away, Maya exhaled. One corrupt cop down. But the fight wasn't over. She turned to Steele. "Let's go. Take down a senator." Steele grinned. "Now, that's a fight I want to see." The story of Maya Johnson isn't just a thrilling tale. It's a reflection of real-life challenges many face when confronting corruption and injustice. Her resilience teaches us a critical lesson. Truth and integrity must always prevail, even when the system seems rigged against us. One key takeaway is the importance of knowing your rights. Maya understood the law and refused to be intimidated, which ultimately saved her. In our own lives, whether dealing with law enforcement, workplace ethics, or social injustices, knowledge is power. Understanding your rights and standing firm can make the difference between being a victim and seeking justice. Another lesson is the value of whistleblowers and allies. Mill's decision to do the right thing was risky, but his courage helped expose a larger conspiracy. It reminds us that standing up alone is hard, but finding like-minded people willing to fight for justice can turn the tide. Lastly, this story highlights that corruption thrives in silence. The more people speak out, the harder it becomes for the corrupt to hide. Whether in our communities, workplaces, or governments, it's our responsibility to challenge wrongdoing and demand accountability. In the end, justice prevails, but only if people are willing to fight for it. What would you do if you were in her shoes? If you were framed for a crime you didn't commit, would you? 1. Fight back, risking everything to expose the truth. 2. Stay quiet and take the safer route, avoiding danger but letting corruption win. Drop a 1 or 2 in the comments below. I want to hear your thoughts. Would you have had the same determination as Maya, or would the risks be too great? And if you enjoyed this story, don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit the notification bell to stay updated on more powerful stories like this. Your support helps us continue sharing stories that matter